This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation, the MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, Welcome to the Misfit Nation.
Show.
Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at _MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to our Sunday after dinner show. The Misfit Nation show is live. Glad to have y'all here. I know it's a Labor Day weekend. A lot of people are off having barbecues, ending the summer in the way you do with your family and your friends. Be safe. You can listen to this again in December on our audio. This is also the start of Suicide Awareness Month. You know, this is a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. We started a campaign on our page, the Misfit Nation page. Get on there, join in, and then make your post daily. And also check out my buddy Chris Lancia. He has a campaign called I Will Listen. And every day this month, someone else will give about a 1-minute blurb about why they will listen to you as well. On this day, we have 2 more people to add to our end of watch list. Police Officer Darren Burks, Dallas Police Department, and to watch August 29th, 2024. And Police Officer Felicia Carson, Osage Beach Police Department, Missouri, and to watch August 31st, 2024. Keep their friends, their families, and of course their peers in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this tumultuous time. Hopefully we don't have any for our next show on Tuesday night when the Tuesday crew welcomes Ken Brewer. Tonight we have a great guest. He has administered personality-based life coaching for more than 20 years. He built a successful education company that used his personality typing method to better the lives of more than 20,000 students, parents, and teachers. As a creator of the Youtopia Project website and the Utopia 16 assessment, he has disseminated his method to over 500,000 users since the website's creation in 2016. So without further ado, let's welcome Eric G to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Eric.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me, Rich.
Oh, it's great to have you here, brother. Like I told you in
nice
the green room, I'll give you a short introduction, but I want you to tell us more about you. Let the audience, let the Misfit Nation know more about Eric from as far back as you want to go to how you got into how you started the Utopia Project and where you see yourself going in the future.
Well, I love the title music, by the way. I was listening to that, and it kind of reminded me of the new metal that I grew up listening to in college. So I guess that's dating myself. But yeah, I started an education company, and for about a decade I ran it. And through that, I developed this personality typing methodology, which helped me understand some of the students better. It helped my teachers understand their students better. And really what it comes down to is like, when we start understanding ourselves, what we truly want versus like what society tells us we should want, I think that kind of leads us to making better life decisions. And, then it goes way back to when, I was a young kid and I felt kind of, I won't say weird, but I kind of felt like, I kind of have maybe different values than some of my classmates. And, sometimes those values don't necessarily match up with the people in charge, like the teachers and whatever society is telling you that you should want. I think that can cause a bit of trouble just emotionally and psychologically, I think. So that's when I started developing it in my late teens, and I started reading a lot about personality typing methodology. I know everyone's heard of like Myers-Briggs or MBTI or maybe the Enneagram. But I read a lot of that and I did my research and I came to just get some practical knowledge about it. And that's when I wrote my book, The Power of Personality. And hopefully I can spread the word a little bit more.
Awesome. And you mentioned Myers-Briggs, and that's what like the corporate standard. A lot of corporations use the Myers-Briggs test to see how a new employee fits in or where their strengths and shortcomings might be when they come into a company. What differentiates them from what you do?
I would say Myers-Briggs and most, I think, personality typing methodologies focus on what you see on the outside. And I think that's important. It's also kind of like easy and it makes sense. It's on a practical level. It's like they tell us, well, you can't guess what's going on the inside. But I do think like if you ask certain questions, you can kind of try to figure out what is the reason why people do the things they do as opposed to what exactly they are doing. I think Myers-Briggs tends to say like, if you're this type, then you're going to be good at these things, or vice versa. If you're good at these things, then you are probably this type, but I think what really differentiates us is our values. I think we all value different things, or at least prioritize those values differently. And I think that can make a huge difference. And sometimes those are a value difference is not something that we readily accept, right? I think we readily accept like outward surface differences. Or like, oh yeah, that person's like organized and I'm a little more like spontaneous.
Right.
But I think when you start talking about deep held values, I think that gets to be a problem. And that's when you really have conflict. And I think people are slower to accept that.
Definitely, and a lot of it is judging that book by its cover.
Right. Exactly.
Like that's what Myers-Briggs kind of does, and I hate taking any kind of test because I don't take tests well anyway. So I won't even read the full question. I'll just start taking sections. Oh, that looks like a good answer, and I'll take the answer. So I'm not going to get the full answer to what I am anyway. I know that going into it. I did the VIA Institute's character does matter characteristics test, and I actually paid attention to that one. It came up, and it came up with things for me I had no idea that really meant anything to me. But as I look back, I see I actually do believe in those things. So it was my values, my beliefs that actually went into it. Do you see that when you're working with students or you're working with their parents to see that aha moment when they, yeah, that really is what I do?
Yeah, I love it, especially with students, because obviously students are greatly influenced not only by their parents. Sometimes it's the opposite. Whatever their parents say, they try to do the opposite, right? But they really are influenced by their peers, right? And I think, I get a lot of students maybe in the 10, 11-year-old range. I get some in the 16, 17-year-old range, right, when they're about to go to college. And then I have like people who are in their 40s, right, who are like, my job sucks. Why do I hate it? Why did I do this for 20 years? Help me out, And I think I love it when it just clicks, when someone just says, oh, no wonder why I felt so weird and so different like 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or even now, like it's okay. I'm okay. I just have different values, and it's okay to do that and pursue other avenues of success. Right.
Definitely. And a lot of it, like you just said there, people stay in that job for 20 years because someone told them they had to, or it was the norm when they started that job, when they started that career. But they never really they dread go to work every day, and they didn't really realize why until maybe they meet someone like you who shows them there's a different path you could have taken, and maybe you can take now and be happy.
Yeah, the story I've been telling is, because it's just happened like maybe 9 months ago, but I had my cousin's kid just graduated from pharmacy school. And, I was talking to him over New Year's, and I was like, oh, so what do you want to do now? And he's like, oh, I don't know, as long as I don't have to stay in the same place all day long. I'm like, well, that's kind of what most pharmacists do. I mean, which is cool if you're down with that, right? But if you're not, and I knew my cousin's kid, and he's more of a hustler, he hustling in the best possible way, right? He likes travel. He doesn't mind like moving around and, I guess earning his money, and so I recommended pharmaceutical sales. And I was like, that way you could use kind of the skills you learned in pharmacy school, but maybe also like travel to different places, talk to different people, and he was like, well, I don't know. I want to waste all the time that I spent in pharmacy school, right? All that knowledge that I learned. And I'm like, well, you only have one life. Do you want to waste that doing something you don't like? And he's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So
Exactly. I mean, like you said, a pharmacist usually stays in the pharmacy unless they own the pharmaceutical company, I guess, then they can move around. But they're usually in one area and they stay there for a long time unless they are in upward mobility, I guess, and can do something different. But that's a kind of a niche area where you stay someplace for a long time.
right. And a lot of personality types value that, right? Like I speak in my book, like one large group of people, probably about half the population, their major value is safety and security. And that's great. Like when you think about it, like why do we have civilization, right? Like we have people who are there to like go make sure that the structure and the order that makes us like that sometimes we take for granted, right? They make sure that it's still there, right? They're also the type of people who remember that you should have toilet paper in the house all the time, right? Like, logistical stuff, right? Which is super important. And so being a pharmacist would be great for that personality type because it's safe, secure. I'm going to go there at this time. I'm going to leave at this time. I know when I can take care of my family or whatnot when I have free time. And other people like excitement and they like a different schedule every day. And I think that those people probably shouldn't be pharmacists. Those people should probably be in sales or things like that.
Or doing something that's outward mobility. They're doing something military or something where it's something different every day. First responder. You never know what you're
Yeah.
going to get every day as a first responder.
And even in the military, right, there are different like specializations, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're going to be people like Delta Force, right, who are going to have specific project-oriented goals and objectives versus someone who's like guarding a facility, and that's going to be more. They have to be more vigilant, but it's going to be more steady, right? And I think that also helps knowing people's personality because you can kind of put people in the right spots.
Exactly. And we just talked about like different personalities. How many different personality types are there, and how do you differentiate them?
I break it down into 4 major packs. I call them packs because I use animals for my individual personality type, right? It's really easy for people to remember. And I always say, if someone knows that they're a fox, they never forget it. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a fox, you know? And I think you kind of can figure out what the fox personality type is a lot like. So there's 4 packs. And then within those 4 packs, there are 4 animal personality types. So 4 times 4 makes 16. So there's a total of 16 personality types. And if you're within one of the packs, you guys are all going to share a specific value. And it doesn't mean that other packs can't have that same value as well. It's more just this is a priority, a heavy priority for you. And then the other animal personality types within that pack will share that, but they might achieve that value differently than you might. And that goes on and on for each individual pack.
Awesome. I'm sure people really get thrown back when you give them an animal they didn't think they were. Have you had anything like that happen before?
Yeah, well, it definitely happens when people don't like their animal. They're like, a beaver? I don't want to be a beaver, and I don't know, like I'm a baboon type, which is it's not a very flattering animal as well. So I'm just like, hey, you know what? Suck it up. Like if you don't like your animal, sorry, And to be honest, like beavers are very much like beavers, right? And you can imagine, what does a beaver do? They're the person who like does all the dirty work and is really part of the community and is like their duty, right? To like, they'll fix your car if you need help. They'll wash the dishes, and they don't want you to do that job. They just want you to appreciate them, right? And that's kind of what a beaver does, like in the animal kingdom or in nature.
It made me think of the movie Couples Retreat with Vince Vaughn. At the end, he gives them all their animal at the end, and he got the ass because he's stubborn like an ass. He said so.
Yeah, we don't have an ass personality type, probably because it would definitely not fly. I think people are like, no, definitely not. At least some are more
just as a picture on the side.
Yeah, we do have deviant roles. So in the book, my whole thing is like, we have to accept our strengths, but we also have to accept our weaknesses, and also accept that our weaknesses often come from our strengths. So let's say if you are a stag personality type, which is a very common one, and it's a good one. It's like very confident. They're competent, they're responsible, they're really organized and structured. But, when you have those strengths, their deviant role is the fascist, right? Because, when you at your worst, you're going to be stubborn, you're going to think you're always right, you're going to force other people to do the things that you think are right, because it comes from that idea of like control and responsibility and structure. So we do have a deviant role for each individual type, just so that people can accept that, there are weaknesses that we have to work on.
Definitely. And people who think they're perfect are usually the ones that need the most work, is what I've
right.
And sometimes give them that little nudge to say, hey, look in the mirror, and this is what you are. And you might need to do some tweaks to make yourself a little better at being that person.
Yeah. And especially if you're a type or a personality type that is more populist. Like usually when I have students like that, it's not teaching them confidence in themselves. It's more teaching them about their weaknesses and also identifying that not everybody's going to be like them. Versus if I'm like, helping out or coaching for lack of a better term, a minority type, right? Like one that's only maybe 2 or 3% of the population. That is definitely going to be more like, okay, I know you're really different and it's okay. Let me help you with this foundation first so that you're not trying to pretend to be like other types, because that's never healthy.
Exactly. And I think another common thing with people when they think about personality types, they think of the extrovert, the introvert, the alpha male, the beta male, or the alpha person, beta person in birth order. Where do you think those fit in? Because you brought up Delta Force before, and a lot of operators are A-type people. They're type A fellers, and that's what we look at them as. But where do you see all that stuff fitting in?
I feel like I love personality typing because I feel like there's a few myths in terms of like pop culture references, like introversion, extroversion. And that's a big thing. Like there are books about it's okay to be an introvert. But I think, in teaching personality theory for 20 years, I also get a lot of complaints, right? And one of the major complaints is a lot of people say like, yeah, but that's so dumb because I'm introverted in this situation and I'm extroverted in this situation. So it's not a sure thing, And I always say that's true, right? Like, so there has to be something else to it. And that's why I focus so much on values, because I feel like if something really means something to someone, then of course they're going to be a little bit more aggressive with it. They might be more type A with it. They might be more extroverted and outgoing with it. And if it's not that big a deal to them, then I think they're going to be just less. They're going to be more deferential and kind of just like, whatever. Like I don't have to be too aggressive in this situation because I really don't care. The same person who's extroverted and goes up in front of a crowd and speaks and has a huge speech that is really inspirational is the different kind of extrovert than the person who wants to party and goes and takes body shots in Cabo, right? Like that's a very different value system, which is okay. They're both cool, but they're very different. I don't think if they talk to each other, they would be like, oh yeah, you're like me. They'd be more like, oh, okay, we're kind of different. So same with like the alpha males and things like that, because everyone talks about alpha males and being aggressive and strong. But, I think of like one of the strongest superhero characters, right? Just archetypally is Superman. And what do we first think of, I think, when we think of Superman is someone who actually takes punishment, who takes a lot of pain without reacting strongly, who like cares more for people and is nurturing and kind. I think there's different kinds of strength that we can all exhibit based on our personality type. It doesn't have to be that kind of macho go-getter, kind of mentality all the time.
Definitely. And I've found that most people that come out and say I'm a type A person, they're usually not a type A person. And those who tell me they're introverted usually only say that when they don't want to do something, when they don't want to stand up and order something, or they don't want to stand up in front of people. That's when they're introverted. But then they'll be extroverted the whole rest of the day.
Yeah, just when you make them do something they don't want to do, surprisingly, they're like, "Oh no, that's not my thing," And
it's not my bag. I can't do that. It's not my area.
And I love that you said that about like people who, it's the same thing, right? It's like a bully, right? A bully always projects some kind of strength, but when it comes down to it, the moment they get any bit of pushback, they become really cowardly, because I do think people overcompensate, right? So yeah, the same person says they're type A will get pushed around really easily because they're just overcompensating.
Definitely, 100%. And I'm sure you've been able to, with your 20 years of experience, 20 plus years of experience of doing this, you've seen the whole whirlwind of this stuff. Have you ever met someone that thought they were the tip of the spear person, and then you kind of brought them back to earth and say, this is really where you are?
Well, that happens a lot with, okay, so I mentioned stags before. Stags are very, and it's not a common, well, it's a common type. They're the type of person when you're in school, they'll be like, okay, like if they're in your group, if you're given a group assignment, they'll be like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. You're going to do this. Like they take charge, and you kind of need that. And that's great. And the problem is, since there's so many of them and they get rewarded for that through school, then they grow up thinking they're always right. Yep. So there have been stages where I'm like, okay, look, that's great, but it's not going to be effective. You can't just bully people around, because everyone has different values, and you're just going to have to learn to deal with it, And sometimes there's a bit of pushback, but at the end of the day, I think you can be a mature person no matter what your personality type is, and we all have this individual growth arc that we have to go through. And oftentimes stags, like you said, they always feel like they're the tip of the spear, and their growth arc is learning that no, they can have responsibility without having absolute power, and that's okay.
Exactly. And I like that you said it. Usually, it's that bully that overcompensates for something, and then once you expose that, that's when they become their true person and understand things. And sometimes, like in the military, for a lot of our audience, military veterans, and some are first responders, when they first start their career, they're trying to prove something. You got to prove something early, and then you got to evolve. As you become a leader, you have to evolve and change. If you're going to survive in any leadership position, you have to understand people, understand your people, understand the mission, and make things happen so that everyone is doing things successfully. Once you can understand that, you have to change. And I'm sure when you work with adults, especially, have you the evolution of them? Has that opened their eyes? Oh my God, I've evolved since I was 20. Now I'm 40, and I do things way differently.
Yeah, I always say that people can't change, but we grow, right? And we grow into either better versions of ourselves or worse versions of ourselves. And I think it's really great when I can work with adults that they realize they have to grow in some form or fashion. And then you see that over the course of time where they've grown. I remember working with a student, and he was, I'm trying to remember, 14 at the time. And, and this was a weak point of mine because, I mean, I was young at the time, or youngish, and I kind of took him for granted. And I was just, or I would say I took him for granted. I underestimated him, I think. And he was kind of an athlete, and he wasn't really getting a lot of the things I was trying to teach him about understanding personality, understanding different people, and really thinking deeply. So I kind of just like, okay, whatever. Like, and then, I worked with him for like 2 sessions, and then that was it. And, the cool thing is, about a whole decade later, he came up to me and he said, hey, you know what? I just want to talk to you about what you taught me just for 2 sessions. And he had joined the Army after, I forgot what armed forces he had joined, but he joined something after high school, and he went to Afghanistan. And he said, the stuff that you taught me really meant something, because after I kind of killed my first person, that was something the feelings I was going through, I wasn't really expecting, and basically whatever I taught him, I guess, in terms of looking deeply, it helped him to kind of get through that experience. And for me, it taught me I should never underestimate people, right? Because we all have the ability to grow and change no matter what we initially seem like.
Definitely. And I mentioned earlier the VIA test to show you character strengths. And when I took that, I was surprised that when the number one thing on mine wasn't leadership, because I always thought I was this great leader. My number one strength was social intelligence. And that took me back, because I didn't even know what that was at first. So I had to read up on it to understand what social intelligence was. And then I realized I learned that over my career, how to understand what's going on around me, understand the people around me, understand their strengths to make things work. And that's a dynamic many people don't realize that they have. And I didn't know it after 22 years of being in the military as a leader.
Right. And we're not really told that that's important, right? Like when you think
Right.
about going to school, right? It's not like we have classes on understanding people. And I always tell my students, I'm like, which is funny, because it's like, we don't have classes on these things, but it's the one intelligence that really helps us when we become adults, because unless you're working in some cave somewhere where you're never going to see anybody ever, like we all have to work with people. Right.
Exactly.
So I mean,
you have to understand. You have to understand those who are around you. It's like me and you sitting here talking. We have to understand how we tick. If we're in the room together, you have your guitars behind you, I have my guitar behind me. You'd probably play a lot better than me, but we can talk about music.
We can, because you're going to know more about you. I bet you play better than I do. I just have them for show. But I actually, I'm a better bass player, I will say, than my I don't even call it 6-string guitar skills are pretty bad. So
see, but
what kind of music you like? Yeah.
That's how.
Was that your taste, the new metal that played on the title credits?
That's actually one of my former soldiers, Raymond Bird. He's one of the pictures that come up in the credits. He majored in music. He made the intro, so it was all him.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. It definitely had that new metal sound. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but at least that's what popped in my head.
It came out awesome. That's all I told him. I told him he needs to redo it to add my new guys, but he's pretty busy now with his fitness career. So once he gets a little break, he'll do this for us. I told him everyone's hyped up on the music, so that keeps him going and moving in the right direction.
Fitness and music, that gravitates towards a personality type already, or an animal type already. Yeah,
it's send me his animal type. I'll tell him what he is, and he'll either laugh or he'll spit his drink out. So,
well, I would guess my first instinct, and I could be totally wrong because I'm totally doing it on the fly, but I would guess a shark. That would be my guess. Sharks are really good using tools. They love using specific tools, which is why obviously music, you're using an instrument specifically. And then when you work out, if you're a fitness person, like your body is your tool, right? So it's like, what drills do you do? They're not always the best, like, let's say book students. They don't totally love to read a lot and then memorize and take a test. But if you give them like something to work on where they have to practice over and over again and learn that way, that's what they specialize in.
Without ever meeting him, you just nailed him. I'll tell you that.
Oh, okay.
You nailed him. I met him in Afghanistan, December of 2010. He came to my platoon, and he was my tech guy. Him and his roommate, basically, they had the same pod together. Anytime I needed something made or done, I went to them too. I say, hey, this is what I want. All right, Sarn, I got you. Bam, they go do it. They say, oh, there's an app for that, Sarn. All right, whatever you're talking about. There's an app. Go do it. And they'd make it happen.
they're so objective based, which is great, especially in that situation, right? Where they're like, okay, what's my target? Oh, that's my target. That's what you need. Okay, I'll give you the best. I'll make that happen.
I'll make this widget for you. Awesome. That's it. That's all I needed. Thanks, guys. And you nailed them. You nailed them 100% without ever talking to them. That's good.
And that's great that you have social intelligence, right? Because you know what he's good at. So thus, you're not going to like try to do something that you don't specialize in. You're going to go to the people that you know, like, oh, okay, yeah, of course, I'll go to him because this is what he's good at and what he likes to do.
Right. That's why I like to tell people I have a guy for that or I have a girl for that, because you can't do everything yourself. You have to learn that as you grow, that you have to have that village. You have to have everyone around you with strengths that can do things better than you and make things work and make the whole team look good.
Right. And I think that's one of those things that we're not often taught in school. I mean, we have group assignments occasionally, but a lot of it's like, I mean, there's such a focus on, and I'm not saying that math and science and language arts aren't important, but, you know, like I do think that just understanding people, and I guess with language arts, we kind of get it. Like I always tell students, like when we read something and learn, like when they're reading something in school, learning about characters is important, not because you're going to get tested on the character like the moment you die, right? It's much more like learning about this character will help you learn about the people in your life. And hopefully my book helps people do that too. That was the intent, because that hopefully will make people, their relationships, and foster stronger ones.
You definitely. And do you have a copy of your book there you can hold up for the audience, or is it...
You know, I do. It's right over, actually.
Right there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, but you know, I actually have one right next to me, actually, if I can, it's permit me the time to reach over here and grab it. Probably knock something over.
Just don't break your computer.
Yeah. Oh, that's the first thing. Yeah. Here's my book right here.
There it is. Power
big
Personality.
version, and then the small version in the back behind me. But
awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go, audience. Power Personality. I'm sure that's available on Amazon, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you buy books.
Awesome. So it's everywhere. So it's not just in one place. You can get it anywhere you actually shop. So that's awesome. I know on your bio says, can you, for fun, can you type a few well-known people, real life or fictional characters? So say Samuel L. Jackson.
In real life? Well, okay, Samuel L. Jackson in real life, I'm going to guess, is probably, the first thought in my mind is a peacock. And the reason why peacocks are loud, and I think that's the first thing we think of when we think of Samuel Jackson, is loud and bombastic. And, you know, obviously we think of him using a lot of profanity in the most colorful way. Right. And, you know, peacocks are performers. So you're going to have a lot of actors actually who are probably peacocks. They're really good at like knowing their audience and, you know, playing to their audience. Like Jack Black would be another example of a peacock. Yeah. Like and they're also very physical. They like to move a lot. And they like to communicate with a lot of gestures. So if I were doing Samuel Jackson, I'd say a peacock. Even though he doesn't always play peacock characters, but probably in his real life, I guess he's a peacock. But
that's awesome right there. I'm thinking another one. Female, maybe Beyonce.
Oh God, I don't want to say peacock again because it seems so like I've never actually thought about Beyonce, but you know, a singer as well. Yeah. She's much more like, I mean, obviously she's a big dancer and outgoing, and she's very loud as well, big voice. Yeah, I mean, I could say another peacock because there aren't that's not like peacocks are all around, but obviously in entertainment, there's going to be a few more peacocks than there would in the population.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you, Eric. That was just for fun right there. That's exactly what a session thing, for fun. Throw it out there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's people love it. Like people love to hear fictional characters because then they want to know what fictional character they are, right? They're like, oh, like which character, Harry Potter character am I, or whichever like show people are on. And sometimes it disappoints them when they get a character that's not that fun. But I'm like, hey, like you can't always be the main character, okay? Like, you know, like I do Game of Thrones and my character is one of the main characters. So people are like, oh, well, that sucks. Why do you get the main character? I'm like, well, it's not in every story, I'll be honest, you know? So, yeah.
What's 3 things people can do to understand their personality a little more each day? And one thing they can probably do to understand their personality.
I would say, and this is not the easiest thing, but I would say meditate or reflect on one thing that you do in any given day and why you do it. So if you're doing something and you're reflecting and you're like, wow, I don't know why I do this because I'm told to do that, then not that that's going to tell you what your personality is, but it's definitely going to tell you what is probably not your personality, which is maybe doing that, right? And of course we have to do things that we don't do, you know, Not like who loves paying taxes, right? You know, it's not someone's like, oh, I'm super excited about like filling out this, you know.
I'd like to meet that person. I'd like to meet that person.
Yeah. I like to meet that person so I could hire them. No, I think I probably have to do my taxes. But yeah, like I don't think certain rote things are not always the most exciting. But it's like our impression of them that can kind of give us why we don't want to do those, which might lead us into what our personality type is. So I would definitely say that, like, figure out at least one thing that you do in any given day, and why do you do it? What is the reason? What is like your true reason? Is it fun? Is it exciting? Does it make you feel safe? Do you just like learning things?
Yeah. Are you a life learner? Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, some people just love information. It's funny enough, it's a minority pack. They make up about, I'd say about 8 to 10% of the population. I used to say they seek knowledge, and then that was too sexy of a word, because then everyone was like, oh, that's me. I seek knowledge. I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, so I knew someone who was of that personality pack. She was an owl specifically. And she said she would go into a burning building to save a book, just a book.
Just a book.
Just a book. If she thought that was the last book ever on the planet, copy of that book ever. And I'm not saying that every person of that personality type would risk their life for a book, but the fact that she said it, or that they would consider it, tells us that information is really vital to them, right? Where other types would hear them like, what? That's so dumb. Like, I wouldn't do that, you know? So once again, it just depends. Values, right?
Exactly. 100% values. And Eric, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Maybe to get a personality assessment from you, or learn more from you, or maybe have you on their show?
Well, you know, you can reach me at my email at eric@utopiaproject.com. That's Utopia, like YouTube, like YOU. And my website is projectutopia.com, where you can learn about my coaching, learn about my creative space here in Los Angeles. And sorry, I have so many random internet associations here, but I also have another website that has the tests on it. And you can take a test. And I'm not huge on these tests. You know, I definitely recommend buying the book, not just because I'm trying to sell books, but because I think that's just a better way to understand ourselves than just take some rote, like, cookie cutter test. But I did make a test, and it's on utopiaproject.com.
Awesome. So you guys go to utopiaproject.com, find the test on there. I think I put the link in the notes, actually, or I'll add them to the notes. It's in your profile. So you can get these tests and maybe find out more about yourselves and be more successful as you move forward in life. Eric, this has been awesome chatting with you for the last 30-something minutes. Thank you for taking your time tonight to hang out with us. And I look forward to seeing more great things you do in the future.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Rich, and enjoy the rest of your Labor Day weekend.
You too now. Be safe.
You too.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse va.gov for information, but you can now ask specific questions to the chatbot, like, what's the PACT Act? How do I apply for disability benefits? What's my claim status? You can access the new feature through va.gov's Contact Us page. Then click on the Start Chat button. The chatbot will continue to improve veterans' access to information about the benefits and services they've earned. This is one way VA is offering seamless and secure access to its online resources.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.